Okay, so welcome everyone to this special meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Fontanes. Absent. Councilman Henderson. Absent. Councilwoman Johnson.
Here.
Councilman Nathan. Absent. Councilwoman Souza.
Yes, I am here.
Councilman Stacks.
Yes.
Mayor Cohen.
Here. Okay, so we are here to consider setting a public hearing to adopt a 3-month moratorium in the city of Rye, temporarily prohibiting, it says clear cutting, but it's broader than that, cutting of trees on any lot without a permit for the duration of this moratorium. And I see that there are a number of speakers.
Can we make some comments on this before we open up to everybody else? Because I think there are some of us who had some comments.
If people would like to do that, that's fine.
So I know a couple, to the point of, clear cutting in the, at least in the title of this, the local law. So I'm going to read it just for everybody in the audience's point of view. A local law adopting a 3-month moratorium in the city of Rye temporarily prohibiting, right now it says, the clear cutting of trees on any lot without a permit for the duration of this moratorium. I'd rather, instead of clear cutting, if you say the removal of trees. I'm going to get all kind of borax about this right now.
I like that too.
So I'm just going through it. The next paragraph, whereas in recent years the city of Rye's remaining undeveloped lots have been clear cut of trees prior to any building permit or other discretionary approval being applied for or granted. Do we want to use clear cut there too, or do we want to say? Well, yeah, I guess it's just a whereas clause, right? It doesn't really matter there.
Yep. It doesn't. I'd like to insert the word may in the line following, that is, may negatively impact the surrounding property's values.
Where are you right now? What whereas?
Same whereas clause.
Maybe this third one. I'm on this
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry.
I'm on this one.
Okay, that one has
Yeah.
clear cutting too.
Yeah, it has clear cutting, but I think it's the whereas clause. Sorry to make this all right now, but where a lot of the undeveloped lots have been clear cut of trees, they actually have, which is part of the prompting of this, right?
Okay, so you're in.
I'm okay with
first.
that. I just don't, I want it here to be removal of trees.
Yes.
Here I'm okay with clear cut. Yep.
Okay.
So the first whereas is left as is.
Left as is.
Okay.
I'm going to continue. Whereas the City Council would like to address substantive changes to the City of Rye's Chapter 187 trees, that's the name of that chapter, including but not limited to requiring a permit or other approval prior to the removal of trees on property, regardless of whether other discretionary or non-discretionary approvals are needed. There has been a tree, Carolina and I and our dearly departed Richard Becca, council member, have been working on revising the tree law for some time now, and there have been other more recent conversations. So what we're talking about here is that we're actually trying to rewrite that whole code. What we're talking about tonight is a stopgap to at least put a ceasefire on all of this until we can get that fully where it needs to be. Whereas the City Council finds that clear cutting properties dramatically changes the character of a neighborhood. Yes, I would say lots of tree removal, even if it's not clear cutting, dramatically changes the neighborhood, and may negatively impact the property value, to Josh's point.
So you're also suggesting removing clear cutting and saying finds that removal of trees dramatically.
Yes. Okay. And then insert the word and may negatively impact the surrounding property's values and alters drainage patterns. I don't have a problem with the next clause about conservation of native species as a priority. Absolutely, the next clause speaks to, we are determined to review the existing chapter 187 and make revisions to codify what we're talking about in this moratorium and or other changes. And we expect to require about 3 months to get that work done. I think that's reasonable. Do you think that's reasonable, Kristen?
We have a draft law that the subcommittee has already started, so
Right.
it is a work in progress.
And doable. Okay. Because if not, do we need to give ourselves more time? That's
Well,
my concern.
later on, it does allow for extensions of this moratorium up to an initial of 270 days for a total of a year.
Okay.
But I did insert the initial 3-month period as thinking that was a reasonable amount of time, given where we are in the review.
That's helpful.
And just to be clear, we have, when we've had moratoria before, we've tried to move expeditiously to stay within the timeframes.
Okay, so that's fine. Yeah, I'd rather have pressure to get it done than get it done right. So the section 1, we do refer to clear cutting of trees again, and I do think there's sort of a difference between a tree removal, right, in case it gets damaged or is diseased or something like that, and clear cutting. I want to cover the in between. I don't want it to be as bad as clear cutting, so I don't know what language we can propose here.
We can say permitting the removal of trees.
All right, we'll say removal of trees, but I also understand that that sounds pretty severe too, like, nope. There will have to be exceptions for,
There,
and which there are to follow, I know, but I'm just saying for this. I'm fine with the rest of this. Okay, so this is where when we get into section 2, we're talking about, for the purposes of this moratorium, the following actions are prohibited by the city. Cutting down more than 3 trees of over 8, right now it says 10-inch caliper, as measured at 48 inches above ground level at the base of the tree on any parcel. I want to debate a lot in here. I think 3 might be too many. I'd suggest maybe 1 or 2. And I would say, I think the current law speaks to 8 inches in caliber, so I'd want to see 10 replaced with 8. And I'll debate 3 as a quantity with anybody who wants to talk about it.
I would like to reduce the 3. I could live with 2. And it should be 8-inch caliper. The rest of the city code, subdivision law, and so on, speaks in terms of 8-inch caliper.
Right. So are we all 2?
I could live with 2, or we can say properties of a certain size or in a certain zone.
Yes, this is, just to be clear, this covers all properties, regardless
Properties
of,
are 7 acres, 56 acres, or quarter acre.
or, yeah, right, to Councilman Stack's point, it's commercial or residential, or any parkland, any property in Rye.
Right. So we could maybe be more specific.
I would rather, I'd rather stay with the 2 trees, and if they want to come in and see us,
Okay.
if there's special circumstances.
Regardless of the type of use, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to just say just residential, I'm just clarifying. I mean, we're saying like no trees whatsoever, or 2 trees, basically.
I'd say residential. Although I don't want, okay. I still wouldn't want somebody going out saying, oh, I'm not residential, so I'm exempted from this. And then I can clear cut for business purposes.
I'm not arguing either
No,
way,
no,
I'm
this
just
is a
clarifying.
discussion, yeah, I agree with you.
I'd rather not try to take on that complexity.
But we will in the law.
We will in the law.
All right, so 2 and 8, is that, would you be okay with 2 and 8?
Right.
2 trees, 8-inch caliber.
Roughly, I mean, I don't know, like what's,
So at 48 inches, so what's that, 4 feet tall,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, I got it.
So this,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
That's a pretty big
I
tree.
went out today and measured an 8-inch caliber tree. It was about 50 feet tall.
Oh, it's
It's,
a big tree.
that's a big tree.
All right, so then I would ask that that carry through to section C, which it says 2 trees, 8 inches. So it says this moratorium excludes the need to remove unhealthy and diseased.
Before you get there, just a small change at the end of B. And the last line opens with the word relate, shall be preserved as it relates. Should that be exercises? Kristen, I think you were drafting. As it exercises. And delete the 2. As it-
B?
Yeah,
Yeah. All right.
as it exercises its authority and jurisdiction over the project. Okay, then we move to C, which has the same caliber issue.
Yeah,
So help me, Kristen, understand the language here, because it says the first sentence says the moratorium excludes the need to remove unhealthy and diseased trees. So I read that as none of this applies to unhealthy and diseased trees. But then it says the building department shall permit conditions or deny permission to remove identified unhealthy and diseased trees. Is that, does that somehow conflict or not? Because we're saying it's not, if it's not,
well, it's giving discretion to the building department.
I think that's fine, but they're saying that an unhealthy tree, they don't need to come and really do anything, right?
My intent in writing that, maybe it needs to be worded clearer, is that if you have unhealthy diseased trees, submit this arborist report, building department reviews it, consider that your issues permit, the conditions are denied based on the arborist opinion, that you are essentially permitted to come in with diseased trees without having to come to the city council for it.
So we could just open that, Kristen, in the case of unhealthy or diseased trees,
Get rid of
dot.
So I deleted the first sentence and said that this section C starts in the circumstances of unhealthy and diseased trees. If there are more than 3, blah, blah, blah.
If you have diseased or unhealthy trees, you will not have to come before the city council, assuming the city council is the waiver board. You just have to go to the building department and it's an administrative review. Okay.
So here's the penalty. So where it's always gotten harder in the past is like, you have what you have recently where people just come in and clear cut and then apply for building permits so they can circumnavigate this whole process. And there's no real penalty. This is where the rubber meets the road. If work is performed during this moratorium period that results in the removal of trees.
Before you get there.
Yeah.
And at the end of C, last line, identified unhealthy and diseased trees. I think we should say alleged unhealthy and diseased trees.
All right, because they're proving the case there. And there's 3 different ways it could go. Okay. So if someone then goes and does this, does not abide by this, then no building permit will be granted for any structure or expansion of that. I mean, do we need to be broader in this? You get no CO for work you've already done.
Where are you reading?
I'm sorry, E. The penalty here is $2,500 for each tree to be removed. Plus, if you're doing this to build a new house or build an expansion or something, you don't get a building permit for 1 year since you did this. So it slows you down a full year if you break the law, so to speak, right? And I'm just wondering that we're saying no building permit for any structure or expansion thereof shall be granted for 1 year. Is there anything else that we're missing in that, is there a CO that won't be issued? Is there, do you know what I mean?
Well, you could back up the process, if you will. I mean, hypothetically, someone could need wetland permit, or wetland review by the planning commission, site plan review, special exception permit review, there are prior discretionary reviews that you could prohibit before you even get to the building permit stage. So this would allow someone who violates the moratorium to proceed with the discretionary review process, but then they get stopped before they can actually get a building permit. So if you can't get a building permit, you're not getting a CFO. So I think that covers that.
Right.
But,
But they can still go ahead with all the other reviews.
correct.
But you're only stopped for a year. I know that's a long time, but you clear cut, you take down all the trees, you pay the fines, then you wait for a year, and then you get to do what you want to do.
So I would back everything up. I would say don't waste anybody's time. You can't do anything in a year anyway, so why waste anybody's time in any discretionary board looking at your plans?
No, but I'm saying that you've taken down the trees, you paid your fines, and then you just have to wait a year, and then you can
Well, it's
apply for
more than
building
a
permit.
year if you say, let's say the process normally takes, what, a couple months to get through?
At least.
Yeah, it could take, from personal experience, months to go through Board of Architectural Review, if you need a variance, or for, planning. If you're near a wetland, you've gotta go through, the advisory stuff there. If we're saying, you can't just, dual track it, right? Continue as though there's nothing there, and then just wait till the clock runs out and start. I'm saying, you don't even get to start this process until and then do we make them plant new trees?
Well, all I'm saying is, if there's 4 trees or 10 trees or whatever, you paid your fine. You wait 15 months, and then you're good to go again. I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
so.
I do think time is money in this instance, though. I think a year halted is like a pretty big deal. I know you know. You tell me.
No, I'm just trying to put the math together here with how this looks.
Just remember, hypothetically, this is in place for 3 months.
Yeah, this is just a deterrent, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's, we
Right,
can't
okay.
cover.
That's fair. That
Yeah.
helps put it back in perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to back up to subsection D as in dog, I will confirm whether we can prevent a utility company from removing trees absent an emergency situation. I have to double check the authority of Con Ed to come in and do things that they are essentially exempt from our
I think
process.
they normally do that in the right of way anyway.
That's correct. So, but
Yeah.
typically we have very little we can do when
Yeah.
it comes to Con Ed, MTA, et cetera, doing any sort of preventative work.
That's not the main culprit. I have a question. After an extreme weather event as declared by, removal of damaged trees may be removed? Removal may be permitted, I guess, without a permit, or?
Remove
Yes.
it without just maybe. Permitted or
Permitted.
or just allowed,
Or
or allowed without a permit.
Do we need any
Allowed
proof of that? Like,
I
probably not.
figured this was a situation similar to when, I think it's either the city manager or the city engineer now can allow the use of leaf blowers after a storm event.
Yeah.
I think there's a presumption that you're removing debris or trees that have come down because of this severe weather event.
I think there should be some record keeping required. On the part of the party removing the trees. The, kind of easy to say there was a storm and it damaged one tree and GOE took down a bunch of others alongside it. And really hard for us to
So is it a situation where you would want them to, almost going back up to subsection,
Have a certification by an arborist, but I think in a, an emergency situation, it's kind of hard to get, an arborist in time to get everything
No,
done.
you could tie this, I mean, you could tie this in two places. You could tie this to the city engineer's declaration that is the only one that's allowed when it comes to, for example, leaf blower and clean. So you could tie it to that. And again, this is only gonna be for the next 3 months.
Yeah. So time
But
to.
it's not my declaration or the mayor's declaration,
It's the city engineers.
at least as it relates to leaf blowers. I'm not saying whether
Right.
you should or shouldn't. I'm just saying that's the only official action when it comes to the waiver of certain actions, or the allowance of certain actions.
Leaf blowers is very different from trees, taking down trees using leaf blowers. So,
But you can see a situation where, say, lightning hits a tree, half the tree's down, the other not, and it could be blocking a driveway, or it could be on top of a car, or something like that.
My only point is that neither the mayor or certainly in the case of the city manager, unless there's a state of emergency, there is no declarative event. I don't take a city manager any
Okay,
action
so
when it comes to
we'll
a
switch it to
storm.
city engineer?
I'm just saying back that that's the only.
Well, if you just say, as, after a extreme weather event, and as approved by the city engineer, removal, blah, 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 can be without a permit. That requires Ryan evidently to get out there and see it, but you could, it could be, if he has the discretion there, then he could say, send me a photo of what you've got right there, okay, yeah, go ahead, get rid of it. Right? If you could,
works for me.
like,
Somebody has a tree leaning on their house and it's an emergency situation, they have to wait for the,
Yeah, no, you can't.
well, again, 3
Ryan will not
months.
be all over the city.
3 months, but it could be that chances are you're not getting out there with a chainsaw yourself necessarily. You probably call the company, so at the same time you can take a picture and, contact one of us, we'll get you to Ryan, and Ryan, I don't know.
This is just a contrast to see where it is like after ICAS, where you had half the city down with trees.
Yeah.
There's no arborist that's available
Yeah.
for a matter of
Weeks.
Yeah.
And the ability of the property owner to take care of a tree that's endangering the house.
The other factor is that isn't it beholden upon the person who's taking down the tree to be able to prove that, the other way of looking at this is that they've got to prove, as you had to in section C, that was a, that they needed to take it down.
How about we require that they keep a photo record which will need to be available to the city?
Yeah.
Okay, so after an extreme weather event as declared by, you want to see the city engineer?
Well, I don't think we're declaring an extreme weather event, are we?
But we already have it in the leaf blower legislation.
Yeah, let's say by the city engineer.
Yeah. Okay.
Without a permit, but with documentation of the damage or something.
Yeah, or photographic record available upon request, needs to be made available upon request. Okay, go ahead.
I have nothing more than that.
I don't really have anything on G, which is, that if you've already gone through a process, with planning commission or PAR or whatever, and you've been allowed to take down certain trees as part of that process, that usually comes with a tip for tat, so that's exempted. And then if somebody wants to come and petition us, they can, for an exception, they can petition us, this group.
I'd like to insert language that says that it's the city council's intention to grant waivers sparingly.
Okay.
You okay with that?
You said sparingly?
Sparing. I have an issue with 2, the projects harmony. I understand the derivation of the language from other contexts, but I think it makes for an argument that it's okay to take down a bunch of trees because the properties surrounding have already been stripped of trees. That would make it harmonious. And I would just remove 2. I don't think 2 is additive.
That's fine. So let me ask this, Kristen, I guess there's more questions. In determining whether or not we grant a waiver, we shall consider the following factors, right? There are 4 factors: hardship, whether they're in compliance with everything else. Is this like a hard and fast rule? We have to go and say, well, they checked this box, so we must grant a waiver? Or this is, we may consider the following factors, we shall, we may, we can?
It's written in a way that you shall consider what are now perhaps 4 factors, and it's a balancing of the 4 factors. Some of them may not be applicable depending on the circumstances, but those are if I'm an applicant before you seeking a waiver, those are the 4 criteria that I'm going to have to prove one way or the other. Again, I could change that to may consider the following factors, but the idea was to make the criteria broad enough that it would fit a multitude of situations depending on the circumstance, that it wasn't so strictly drawn that but for the trees looming over your house or the trees looming over your house, you're not going to get this.
Right, so I'll just take may then.
So change subsection A to say the city council may consider the following factors.
Because we may also consider other things too, right? This is not a great list, but these are sort of general guidelines as you just described.
Correct.
I like that.
I don't have anything else. Sorry.
Sorry for not having anything else, or
Yeah. No, I'm sorry it took so long.
thank you. Are there other comments? You
No,
want
I
to
just wanted
dance?
to thank Kristen for drafting these in such a quick manner and doing a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really need them to.
So then let's hear from people who signed in, and if there are others who wish to speak, we have a sign-in process and we ask people to try not to speak for more than 3 minutes as a go. And if you run out of time, then we'll ask you to wait for others to finish and then have another 3 minutes.
No, this is just comment. This is a video on the make. This is not part of the public hearing.
Catherine Briggs?
Oh, I get to start? Meeting City Council, Mayor Carr. My name is Catherine Briggs. I'm concerned about this in a few different perspectives. I think it's a good idea to approach that building and taking down trees and just removing all these mature trees. However, if there's a mature tree where Greg is sitting and I'm working here and I got equipment and guys all around here, you're damaging the root structure. I've taken down 2 trees in someone's yard about 5 years after their construction because the roots finally declined to the trees. I think there should be a program where there has to be a permit, you have to replace the trees. If you can't fit them all on that property, then you have to put into the pot for the city to replant on streets or parks. And spread it that way, and also put money in the pot for maintenance of these trees that go back into the ground around the town. I do think it's an issue because you'll be amazed at how much a construction project just needs maneuvering within the property, and then also with drainage and how to maintain that. The cold tech should also be a place where they can allow for new trees and future weeds to grow. It's devastating to see a large tree to come down, but at the same time, you don't want it to fall hazardly because the roots got damaged. I think there should be, again, replanting in different areas or adjust the architecture to allow to maneuver on the property to maintain a few large-scale trees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Kevin, what you're talking about too, they can be built into the law
Into
that
the
we're
law,
talking about. Yeah, because we did that, we welled trees, when we did have construction
Yeah.
around to protect like you're talking about, but I think a lot of what you said here would be very helpful to the law when we create
The intent of the moratorium is to put a stop while we define exactly how the law would read, and then, that's a whole nother process, but this is just sort of a stopgap.
Stopgap, and I understand that, and I think it's good, and I just want, you're gonna hear from other business owners that are more involved in this than myself. But I think it's also giving some time, and I think when a builder makes a mistake, I think 15 months is too long, especially the first time around. I think there should be some forgiveness in that, and then they can get back, holding up a builder for 15 months for a permit in this town, that's tough.
That's the point. And the moratorium is the point.
And the
But this is a
moratorium.
3-month moratorium. If you come down and like start chopping down a bunch of trees in defiance of this, the point is for the consequences to be fairly draconian. The law itself, once that's revised, will be
Soft.
different. Yeah.
Okay, well, I wish you luck in this, and feel free to contact me.
Thank you. Lucy Burkhoff.
Hi, I'm also a landscape designer.
Come on over here, Luce, to the microphone. Is that even working? I'm just setting them there on the habit.
And a mom and a resident of 387 Forest Avenue. And I brought some pictures to share with you guys of one particular project that calls out for this moratorium, which is the corner of Forest and Nursing. And at that project, a gigantic historic beach on the property line where it was not in the way of any design or any home, any driveway was cut down unnecessarily. So that's picture number 1. But I would ask you within these laws to please make allowances for invasive trees to be removed and to please explicitly say a preference for native trees. So at that same property, there are 2 massive invasive Norway maples on the street that could have been removed to make room for a new driveway. Guess what? They left them up when they cut down the historic beaches. Here's another picture of the historic beach. This might be a place where we have an exception, where it might be where the new house was going to be built. So I'm not against cutting down trees completely. I think that we need to have a much more careful and thoughtful way of dealing with these properties. Here's a row at that same property of birch trees that were cut down. These would not be within your 8-inch caliber rule, but this entire beautiful hedge of birch was totally decimated while these invasive trees remained. Here's a property across the street on Forest Avenue. I have worked on 3 properties in that Maple, Davis, and Nursing block. There is an enormous water problem back there. We need to have a water survey of our town to figure out where these old drainage pathways are. But I am telling you that this poor family that I don't even know had a new baby, they had to build berms in their driveway because all the water from that quadrant poured into their house during the last storm. And then we have 2 areas of awesome opportunity on Hook. I love new houses. I have absolutely nothing against new houses, but it seems like about a decade ago, builders took a lot more care with the properties and were much more careful of the trees. You can see from new houses that were built about a decade ago, there are many beautiful old historic trees that were carefully cared for by the builders on that property. And something happened in the last decade to change that. So here we have one property on Hook. It hasn't come down yet, but I can tell that they're planning on saving this beautiful hedge of white pines. Those are natives. In front is an invasive Norway maple. Hopefully they're taking that down. And then you have this awkward Norway spruce, which is not a native and possibly is something that should come down. So again, I'm just saying we need to be careful. And to that same point, I have a final picture on Hook of this property down the street, 3 houses down. There is rubble all over every single native tree root that was saved there. Guess what's protected? The 2 Japanese maples, which are beautiful, but are also can be invasive.
Sorry,
So-
I have to call time.
That's it, that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much for your time.
Todd Smith.
Good evening. My name is Todd Smith. I reside at 241 Forest Avenue. Like many that are here tonight, in my 25 years as a resident, I've sadly witnessed the clear cutting of mature trees by developers across Rye. So I applaud the City Council's consideration of a law that's at the very least going to put more. One thing to consider, Catherine touched on it, the excavation that goes on properties can be very damaging to tree roots, even if these trees are quite a distance away. Oak trees, their roots go hundreds and hundreds of feet. So it's just something that I hope that the city will consider going forward as you look at the laws. Consider the excavation, as Catherine pointed out. The other thing I would ask is that you please consider the severe trimming of trees by developers that may weaken them and make them more susceptible to disease a year or two down the line and make them susceptible to removal. So excavation and severe trimming are two things that I'm concerned about, and hope you will consider that in the law going forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Chan.
Hello, Lisa Chen, 296 Milton Road. I am directly across the street from a subdivision that is under review, and as many of you know, there are many trees that have been in discussion with that. 6 trees on the property that are all over than 28 caliper inches. So I have 3 comments about what you guys have just discussed about this moratorium, not about the laws going forward. I don't even think that 2 is low enough. I think you need, in other towns, they distinguish. I agree with the 8 caliper, but I think when you're getting into trees that are that large, you should have a moratorium for the next 3 months in stopping any of them. Anything above 20-inch caliper. I will show you a picture when I'm done here of a tree that is 30-inch in caliper. It is similar to the tree that was so well protected in the circle at Rye Rec. Can you imagine in your moratorium next week someone can go and cut down that tree if it was on their property because you've set a rule that says no more than 2? They could, the way the developers are working now, they could go and cut down 2 massive trees and say, we've abided by it. Because they know that those trees, when you do your laws in the future, are probably going to be prohibited. So they can be selective in picking out. So I would say distinguish and say 8 inches in caliper, but anything above 20 inches in caliper, I throw that out because that's a threshold at Scarsdale, at Harrison, in other towns where they distinguish and those trees cannot be cut down. For 3 months, that's fine, except for emergency removal. The other thing is I want to clarify, is it only an arborist you're talking about or a landscape architect? Because we have been dealing with a bias. Landscape architects are hired by the homeowners and they have a lot of money to make if trees come down and they are going to be paid the services to plant a lot of trees. And I really beg you that you need an arborist who is responsible and certified for the health of a tree to be determining the disease.
That's what we're,
Status.
that's what's on
State
the,
certified arborist.
Okay.
Should it be an arborist though that's retained by the city?
Yes, sir.
yes, you know, what we would love to do is train somebody, but we don't have this there.
I know, but for these
For these 3
three
months, you could contract with one service, one company, and the landowner could pay for that.
Yeah.
If you contracted, you could probably get a better deal, and they can just go to them, hire them to do it. You need an objective observer. We have lived through this. There is a tree that is coming down that the facts were wrong, and it is not diseased.
A city retained applicant paid New
Thank
York
you.
State certified arborist.
Did you catch that, Kristen?
City retained applicant.
So in C, section 2C, where it says, federal report by New York State certified arborist, a city retained applicant paid, however, New York State certified arborist. And I also want to go back up to A, cutting down more than 2 trees over 8 inches. And then I'm also gonna say no removal of any tree above 20 inches in caliber in this moratorium. That's what you said, right, 20? 0. Can we add that to A?
I agree with that.
Okay.
The others?
Yes.
And
So we are now adding to A the prohibition of removing any tree measuring 20-inch caliber at
Or plus.
48 inches, 20 inch or greater.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just, sorry, skipping back down to C, the concept here is that the city of Rye will retain at least one, let's say, city of Rye
We could
retain.
contract with somebody, right? We would contract somebody who, to the point that there might be conflict of interest. We want a real diagnosis of a sick tree, right?
there's a host of arborist trees.
Correct, it's just the procurement of an arborist to represent the city. So, we'll have that, whether it's 1 or 5, but
Yeah.
Services to be paid for by the property owner or the applicant.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, next, please, Terry McVeigh, Cap.
Hi, thank you for having us tonight. I'm Terry McQuaid Cow, 45 Fairway Avenue, Rye, and I'm sorry I didn't get involved with this movement previously. I'm happy with everything that everyone said. I'm even in favor of paying more taxes if we could have somebody, an employee of the town, in charge of looking after our trees. You know, in addition to what we're talking about cutting down trees, you know, we all know the big issue of climate change, air quality, and we know that trees take up water. We had the unfortunate experience just Saturday, unbeknownst to us, a tree cutting company came in on the behalf of a contractor at 11 in the morning, I think it was 11, ending at 5, and cut down every tree on an inside lot. Now today, the company is taking away the remains. We have plenty of pictures. In addition, I have friends who live in Connecticut and in Irvington, New York. They've had tree cutting laws for a long time, and it's really about time that we have them here. We know the storms come up the coast, that we've probably all been hit with some problems through the years. How can we just let this go on? I don't understand. Okay, so of course, oxygen carbon dioxide cycle, it's like, these are issues everywhere in the country, and it has to be done. It's not a question of if. I agree with everything you say. I don't think I have anything more, but we have to look about our kids going forward too. What will it look like? What will it be when floods come through? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Tony Cap.
My name is Tony Cal, 45 Fairway. I follow my wife, hard act to follow. Number one, thank you for your time. And as Terry said, it's a very important step for us to take, even though to me it's a little bit too late. There's some things that happened over the weekend saddened me because I have two brothers who live in Brazil. What I witnessed last Saturday reminded me of how they take down Amazon, which is really sad. It's cut down a tree, and before I came to this country, about 15 years ago, I was studying environmental research in Taiwan, and I witnessed people cut down trees that shortening the life of a dam from 100 years to 50 years in a matter of 10 years. We have to stop this. And I agree with all the rules that you passed. There's a couple of things I just want to say. Number one is, when you cut down a tree, as we all know, where the water is going to go, because the tree serves a purpose. So how do you replace the drainage? And not just engineering to figure out whether you're going to need a special tank and all that. How about asking to plant the tree somewhere to replace those drainage? We need tree. Number two, I think you were talking about the time, like 1 year, whether it's enough. I will encourage, I don't have the specific numbers, but I will encourage, we put in as much a penalty as possible, so make those economically really unreasonable for any developer or anybody to do this. Number three, I think this, I understand this is a special meetings, and I would say we should have as many special meetings as possible to get this done as fast as you can. And every special meeting, I'll be here, even though I'm sort of busy, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremy King.
Thank you for your time. Jeremy King at 33 Stanway Avenue. Firstly, I applaud this initiative. I think it's a great time to be addressing this. And I also support a very careful and thoughtful policy, which it sounds like is being developed here. It was hard to follow some of the language as we were discussing it between yourselves. But I had a couple of specific points I wanted to raise. One was whether a 3-month moratorium is the right time period for you to finish your work. It seems like there's a lot to think about. And I wonder whether perhaps a longer time frame might be appropriate. Secondly, I think there was some reference to the purpose of this proposal being linked to an impact on property value. And I think, if I'm following correctly, what you've heard from everyone here tonight is there's a lot more things to think about, including the environment, impact on irrigation, some of the native species in the area. Councillor Stacks discussed or mentioned the penalty that might be associated with a breach of the proposal. Just basic math, I think if it's a one year sort of pause on development, if you're financing $1 million or perhaps $2 million lot, your cost of capital is 5%. Property goes up that much year over year. It's not really a financial penalty. So my suggestion would be to think about how to strengthen that. And lastly, you've heard about some significant tree cutting that took place this weekend. And I think one thing to consider is whether some of these actions are perhaps reviewable, at least since notice of this meeting was announced, whether that's something you guys can look back at. So, I guess that.
Thank you. It looks like Daniel Gret. Gret.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. My name is Daniel Gretto. I'm the owner of Central Tree Service in Rye. We've been in business 52 years. I myself am a certified arborist by the ISA. There is no such thing as a New York State certified arborist.
Thank you. Oh, good. Yes.
I have my bachelor's in plant science. I'm also a licensed arborist in the state of Connecticut. My firm has been in business 54 years. We're a family-owned company. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Rye. There's a few, my business is to preserve trees. And there are certain circumstances in which trees should be removed, have to be removed, so on. Clear cutting, when you use that term in an urban environment, it's somewhat of a shock value. 2 trees would not be considered a clear cutting. It's too restrictive with 2 trees, especially after a catastrophic event. You need to have something streamlined, whether it be an arborist documented because the tree's leaning. I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't take the tree down until the city gets here and approves it and it falls in your home and it's too late. Also, there's other issues too. We've taken trees down, 15, 16 trees on one site. Emerald-4 has hit us, and it's hit us hard. And we've had properties that are, yeah, sure, that's not gonna happen on a quarter acre. But the Osborne, it's 57 acres, I believe. There's areas in which you have to reconsider this and what the ramifications would be. As far as invasive species should be taken off this list. And just because it's a poor decision by a landscaper or a homeowner that plants a tree, now you're holding back the current owner. We have clients that each and every week, they buy a home, they get insurance, they come out and do an inspection. That tree has to come down, it's too close to the home. Now you have 3 trees that are 25 inches, 26 inches, whatever it may be. They cannot be insured unless those trees are removed. It happens each and every week for us. There's a lot that needs to be done. This council needs to speak to a certified arborist, a professional in the business, and I don't think it should be done by a landscape architect either. Your current code says 8 inches at 54 inches, which is the diameter breast height. That is a standard throughout the industry. You've just changed that to 48 inches. So it contradicts it. Your code now says 54 inches. And as far as restricting it to 3 months, I understand that's what you want to do, but this can be out up to a year, as that was previously stated. I just think that we're rushing into this, and we should definitely have more talk, and you should contact, and I'd be more than happy to assist the town, the city of Rye rather, in having more dialogue, even in a private session, at a later date.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan, can you talk about Rye Brook and like other towns that you do permits for and what that process is
Well,
like?
let's not do that now, because this is the moratorium. This is just ceasefire, right? I love this, and I think we should have a public work session or something on it when we get the law where we think we need it to be. So we'll probably take you up on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So how about the 54-48 question? Is it 48 elsewhere in the code?
No, I took the 48 from our draft
Our
law.
draft.
It is currently 54 in our existing chapter.
That's industry standard across the board.
Yes,
So
that's the diameter at breast height,
diameter breast height.
Which is 54?
which is no longer diameter at breast height, is now 54.
Is that in New York State?
Yeah.
That's the industry as a whole, and that's the International Society of Arboriculture, which is our.
Can I ask a question? Since you work in Connecticut,
No.
Okay, I apologize.
We have to stay on track.
Sorry.
But
I'd say 54.
We will research that and.
You can just
we
Google
will
it.
make the change.
It's changed, right?
So 4.5 feet. Our code is so old, it's like 1970 something.
we should go with 54. We should go with 54. That's the industry standard now. Do people agree?
Are we doing about?
You're not bound by a particular, it makes sense to go with industry standard, but you're not bound by that.
Understood.
Okay.
And I would just like to clarify what ISA stands for, the International Society of Agriculture.
Color respond.
I just heard.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were answering her question.
Yeah.
Industry, what is it? Industry Association of Arbor? What?
International Society of Arboriculture.
PISA.
We referenced that in the draft for approval.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I
What
may.
we can say is,
You have
8
to wait
inches
for
at
us.
DBH, and then that should be understood according to the ISA. 8 inches at DBH according to the ISA. And then that would be the measurement that the ISA recommends.
Yes, get it that way. Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
Okay, we have Kristen Basato.
Hi, my name is Kristen Basato. I live at 33 Valley View Avenue here in Rye. And I thank you all for your service and applaud you for moving us forward. I've just been flabbergasted recently that an entire lot was clear cut with absolutely no permit needed. And it just is boggling to me that there was no review of how that's going to impact the environment. There was no map of what trees are on property. There was nothing done prior to this happening, so I just urge you that when you create this new code, that when properties are purchased here in Rye, that there's some sort of environmental review for every property, so that if trees need to be taken down, we know what impact that's going to have, not only on that property, but on all the surrounding properties. Because as everybody's mentioned, trees take up water, grass takes up water, and I believe that when a property is purchased, there should be a map of every tree on that property, and that should be included when there's permits that need to have trees taken down. So, thank you for your service, and I hope that you consider that
Thank
in
you.
this code.
George and Charlie Hurd.
Hi, I'm Charlie Hurd, and my address is 21 Green Avenue. My name is George Hurd, and our address is 21 Green Avenue.
Do you guys live in the same house? Oh, okay. Emily Hurd, 21 Green Avenue. It's just a little lighthearted break in the action here tonight from the perspective of some kids. I'm going to ask a few questions. We haven't prepared any of this, but before doing that, I just want to say thank you for considering this. I do feel like this is something that is long overdue. The circumstances are unfortunate that led us to this special meeting tonight, but I think this is a critical law for our community. In a city that is overrun with children, we can't keep up our schools to accommodate the number of kids that we have. We are seeing trees cut down left and right, and I can't agree more with Lucy Burkhoff, who said that in the last 10 years, we've seen development take a turn where there's total disregard for our natural community and for neighbors. And I understand that private property, everybody has their right to it, but I disagree that somebody can change the setting of a neighborhood at their own discretion. I do think that the city is responsible for stepping in and creating thoughtful rules that govern what we can do with our trees. And lastly, I just want to say, I really struggle with the arborists in the community because I think more often than not, I see them giving you advice that's whatever you want to hear. And I worry just when you pick an arborist, I think you need to be careful about that selection. Okay, George and Charlie, just a couple things. What are like a few things you can do with a tree?
You can climb it, you can like put a swing on it, and you can...
In the fall.
Oh yeah, you can like jump in the leaves that fell off the tree.
Yeah. George, do you know what the roots of a tree do?
They absorb water.
Did your brother just help you? How long does it take a big tree to grow?
Like hundreds of years.
How do you know how old a tree is?
But when you cut down rings.
The rings.
Of when it grew.
Oh yeah, that's so interesting. Oh wait, what else? What do we do at the nature center? We tap and we make what?
Maple syrup.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about big old trees?
I think that like we should. I don't know.
Should you preserve them?
Yeah.
Are they special?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Did we have a year away in Maine? And what's Maine have the most of, more than any state in the country?
Pine trees.
And did you love those trees?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What do you say to these guys for thinking about this?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sanaz Rosinski.
Thank you for having me, Sanaz Rosinski, 790 Forest Avenue. I'm sad to say that probably Charlie and George Hurd can tell you that they saw many trees go down right behind my property. I was flabbergasted. I'm a sustainability professional, but I'm not a tree hugger. I actually work for a private equity firm. The fact that there was no ecological review of what those massive trees,
I wish Lucy had come to my house and could tell me which ones were invasive. I think there were native species. I know there are birds that are endangered that depend on that property. I called the cops. They couldn't do anything. I have everything on video. Nobody could stop the bulldozing of this land, and it was really unsettling. Somebody mentioned Brazil. Actually, the Brazilian forest law is what we should look at. You cannot remove any tree, not one tree, without a permit. And when you remove it with a permit, you replant one in the same biome so that the ecological impact is the same. All the issues that came up that could impact, I don't even remember them. If Brazil figured it out, our legal infrastructure can figure it out. Our town of Rye can figure it out. I'm talking rural areas in Brazil that figure this out. We need to put an end to this. Thank you.
Sandra Subley.
Hi, I'm Cassandra Supley. I live at 47 Center. There's a giant construction project going on behind us. I'm sure the building department is very tired of hearing from us about. I did not come prepared to speak at all. I heard what you were saying earlier. I had a couple of questions about who decides whether the tree is diseased or unhealthy, and what does unhealthy mean, because what it means to me is very different than what it means to my neighbor, who has probably taken down more than 20 trees on the property. Last week took down more. They had to stop. There's two trees with big X's on it when this moratorium, and at BAR they said none of those trees were coming down. Now suddenly they are. So the law needs to be written to prevent that from happening. And I think that $2,500 isn't even a fine. I think that you cannot replace an 80-year-old tree with a slap on the wrist. And to somebody who can spend the type of money that is being spent on some of these construction projects in town, $2,500 is nothing for them. The amount of money my neighbor's going to make flipping that house is going to be well in advance of that amount of money. That's going to be nothing to them. And not only that, but I think that the damage that was supposedly done to the new trees that were taken down as a result of the construction. You said it very nicely that the architecture needs to change to prevent the damage to the trees. My trees are going to be damaged from the construction that's going on. The dry wells that they're going to sink are going to be sunk into the roots of my trees as well. That's not a solution. I'd like more research done on dry wells as well. I agree with Lisa that during the moratorium, we should have 0 trees as the limit to be taken down. We do need to obviously take into consideration if a tree's leaning on someone's house, they shouldn't be able to take that down immediately. If it's leaning on their house, but not just if big branches take off, because again, what is a big branch to me versus a big branch to someone else? I also am curious when the moratorium goes into effect. Is that immediate? Because like I said, there's still 2 trees left on this property. The police came and stopped the tearing down of the trees on Friday, but if they can get them done before the moratorium goes into effect, we can't replace those trees no matter what.
The moratorium we are just scheduling a public hearing on a moratorium, which is necessary in order to make it law.
Is that today? Is today the public hearing, or that's?
No. The public hearing would be at the next city council meeting, which is on the 15th. And then, assuming that the moratorium passes, Kristen, how quickly is it in effect?
It would be effective, it's effective upon filing with the Secretary of State, but we could make that happen the following day on the 16th.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for taking care of this.
But to your point, the reason that we scheduled a special meeting was because there was this clear cutting that came up suddenly, but also because we know that once we address the question of tree law, we have to snap a moratorium in place because of the very concern we've stated. And so that's why we've stayed with a special meeting to be followed next week by the council.
Thank you for explaining that. And I appreciate this. I am concerned with flooding. So,
Understood.
thank you.
I think that's everyone. Mr. Gretto, if you would like to come back up. You may have forgotten what it was that had been asked and you wish to answer, but
It's common practice with other municipalities is there is a standard, and the standard is 54 inches. Not, go look it up, and that's the standard of this, that. You put it in your code that is a 54, which is what's standard throughout the industry. That's all I wanted to make clear. Don't muck up the waters even more and try to, well, now what is it? And people have to go look as a homeowner, for that matter, because a lot of homeowners want to take the permits out themselves as well. That's just the professionals.
So I'm fine with putting 54. That's extra standard.
And I just, hopefully this city council will deliberate and speak with professionals to know the ramifications of what you're doing to people and their homes. And as I stated before, I'm certainly in this business to preserve trees, and there are certain instances where trees must be taken down, and I do that as well. But we do it not arbitrarily, we have reasons for doing it, and any good arborist, professional arborist, should be doing the same, and there are a lot of them out there. So I just wanted to make that point clear. Thank you.
thank you. Would people, I'd like to reconsider the fine point, and there's the issue of a permit. But what if the person is actually not seeking a permit and just, for instance, is preparing a property to flip it? And they may flip it in a year or 2 years or whatever, but they're stripping the property of trees along the way. And let's say they violate our moratorium as they do that, and we're charging them only essentially $2,500 a tree. Is there anything more that we can do with that?
In the tree law, and traditionally, usually, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is if you are going before bar or you're going before planning, they do, if you're taking stuff down and they approve it, they're asking you to replace somewhere else, right? So I know a couple of people mentioned that, but should that be something in here too? Somebody also mentioned the tree fund, which we also have in the law. It is something that's contemplated there as well, but should there be some, the penalty, the fines, and is there some other replanting commitment?
You can increase the fines. Alternatively, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. In our wetland law, if you are doing work in the buffer or removing, or let's just say doing work in the buffer, you're required to do mitigation plantings or create a compensatory wetland area. And the idea is if you take down 50 trees in violation of the moratorium, perhaps consideration could be you're assessed or maybe assessed a fine of X amount per tree, but you're also required to replant in like kind or
Before a building permits issue.
Well,
I wouldn't do that necessarily, because to the point of, if you're putting them back, you don't want construction equipment or putting them in their beds.
Oh, I thought you meant on a different property.
Oh, that too, but
if you own other property, you can do that, but short of that, usually with the wetland law, we require you to do mitigation plantings somewhere else on your property.
So you don't issue a CO then, if you don't replace the trees in time?
Well, we're not in that setting. We're dealing with someone a present property owner who's preparing property for someone else to buy. And so there's no permit that they're concerned about or CFO that they're concerned about.
Does the delay stick with the property, or does it go to the owner? Is it assessed that property can't have it? So if you're trying to flip it and somebody comes in and says, oh, we're gonna
Yeah, can't run with the property, can't the obligation run with the property.
Sure, I mean, that's how it would work, I mean, regardless, you can switch owners, but you cannot redevelop that property if you violated the moratorium. I guess you could draft it in that way.
Let's just, looking at the fine for a second. Where can we go with this? We've had discussion of fines before, Kristen, and our discretion seems to be limited. How big a fine can we put on tree removal?
I don't know
And
if that
how
has
did
been,
it help?
I don't know if it's been, I'm not aware of any challenges to fines associated with removal of trees. However, if, there has to be some type of nexus, some type of correlation between the fine and the value of the tree. So what we could do is put a range, and maybe that's the safest way to go, that depending on the type of tree and the value of it, it would allow for the prosecutor's discretion as well as the judge's discretion if we go that far in front of the judge to say, okay, well, these were 10, 50 inch rather caliber trees and they're worth $10,000. I just don't know, but we could put a range of a fine of up to $10,000 to be assessed for each tree removed. But ultimately there has to be some correlation to what was destroyed or lost and the value.
You can't go buy a tree from a wreck. Like that's just, you can't go buy that tree, right? So you're only dealing with what can actually be.
I would just be very, I mean, the construction rubble issue is a real issue. That if you don't let people take down trees and they continue with the construction. It happened on the nursing, next door to this house that I gave you the pictures of 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. There were two beautiful matching magnolias. They're not a native, but they're not invasive. Beautiful historic magnolias. The builder piled rubble up.
I guess the question I'm asking is, what would it cost to replace that? Could you replace it, or what's the,
80 years.
Okay, yeah, 100, acknowledging that this is not replaceable, what is the most expensive tree you can go out there and buy?
Oh, cryptomeria is a high one.
Someone give me a number.
You know, it depends on the caliber of the tree.
$20,000.
We shouldn't be planting.
10,000, let's just
No,
go.
I'm just, do you understand what the exercise I'm trying to do here is that because Kristen's saying it's gotta be based in something, which is true, we can't be capricious and whimsical about this and say $1 billion, right? We have to actually, there should be a basis, and so.
I would say $10,000 or $12,000.
Because you also have to consider the labor and the size. I mean, you can go bigger, I mean, you can get a bigger tree, it costs more, but then there's so much care, it becomes unrealistic. So I think the $10,000 ballpark is a good.
Alright, so $10,000.
Well, why don't we say of up to
Up to $10,000
the fine to be set by the building department and correlated to the value of the tree removed.
Is that practical, Greg?
Is what practical?
What do we have to, at minimum 25, I would keep your floor. I would keep your at minimum 2,500. And up to 10,000. Are they gonna be able to, I mean, the building department gonna ascertain that that's a $10,000 replacement tree versus a tree?
It's gotta be Harper's.
Harper's, yeah.
We're not having.
And is that a per tree fine?
Yes.
The way this would work procedurally is if they are in violation of a moratorium, they would be issued a notice of violation. We would go out and document 10 trees, work with an ISA arborist, get an understanding of what the values of those trees would be, and then ultimately it would be either a settlement in court or up to the judge's discretion as to the value. But I would want to be able to provide the judge some basis in where we're coming up with our fine.
Right. So it's up to us to go get that opinion from, yeah, okay. I'm fine with that. So, but I still want to keep the ceiling, or the basement, minimum of 2,500 and up to 10,000.
Okay.
Per tree.
Understood. Okay. And it will still be no building permit for any structure or extension thereof for 1 year from the date of the violation for that property. So it does run with the land.
Yeah.
But if they already have a permit and their CO may be more than a year in advance, does that affect them?
Can't hear you, I'm sorry.
If they already have a
If
permit.
they already have a permit to do work and they go against the moratorium, what happens? They've already got the permit and maybe it'll be another year they're constructing.
You don't get your certificate of occupancy.
Well, maybe they're not even gonna be done with their construction for a year, so they don't care about getting a CO. It becomes a little.
I think that is unrealistic that you would be in it for, or that you would be at that stage and wouldn't be done in a year. So a
Keep
permit
in
is
mind, this is a moratorium for a specific period of time. This is not forever. So,
Right.
and then that'll just give us time to work on the finesse of the law. So
It's interesting.
it's a good
process.
framework. Yeah.
Do you want?
We're not gonna catch everything like with everything.
I agree.
We're not
So
gonna
if you're
catch
building permit or certificate of occupancy, can you say for a year? That's easy. Maybe not. Never mind. I'm taking it back.
The issue that comes up if you go broader is
Yeah.
only if you're doing, you need to see a vote for a new bathroom that had nothing to do with the tree removal.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Okay, leave it alone. Yeah, I'll leave it alone.
Okay.
Just a question.
Terry McQuaid. you were-
Well, I just wondered when, plans go before the Board of Architectural Review. I mean, I know that's not what you're discussing tonight. Do you know when that would be?
When a property goes in front of a Board of Architectural Review, that's all published. So the agenda and the houses that are going up in front of any bar meeting on a monthly basis are published to the city website. So if you go and you find at the bar meeting, the agenda will be posted and all the addresses under consideration with, proposals are there.
Todd, it's better if you come to the podium.
Yeah, just one really quick thought. As you consider the new law, assuming that someone gets a permit to take a tree down, a builder, whoever it might be, I'm assuming that we're gonna have a replacement put into this, some language that says if you take a tree down, you need to plant a tree. My point is, a 2-inch arborvitae is a tree, but it doesn't replace an 80-year-old beech tree. And I don't know
That's
how
when you
you
get in.
get the right replacement value or the right replacement tree. All I'm saying is that I think there should be a consideration of the kinds of trees that we're replacing some of these really historic landmarks.
Maybe we can say replacing kind.
Sure, or at least a certain size. I'm not sure.
Or a couple numbers. If you take down a 20-inch caliber, you have to put in 4 trees. You're not doing 1 for 1. I mean, this is why I brought up other permits for towns, and Dan can tell you his experience with that.
I'm also considering the kind of trees though, because
Yes,
I've
that's
seen
also
builders
comes
just
in
put
the
a
permit too. That's
variety
why I'm
in that are
bringing them
not,
up, 'cause
they're
he has
not a
more
replacement
experience.
for a beautiful maple. That's my point, thanks.
I think Dan should.
On what he just spoke about, you have a property that has white pines, it's a hedgerow that has now grown to 60 feet tall. The intent of that hedgerow was initially to provide screening below, and they no longer do. So they want to come in and they want to put a better plant material to keep bringing back that screening. So they come in and they do that. In other municipalities, they make it that they have to plant a hardwood or some other type of shade tree, but that's not what the intent was for this project. It's just to replace what was existing. So that's what this board has to remember is landscapes are designed for specific uses, for privacy from neighbors. So now if you take down that hedgerow, now I've got to plant 25 maple trees. It's not suitable for that area. So that's something you have to take into consideration as well. Planting hardwoods is great, but if you don't have the property that can afford that opportunity where it's too small, or you just want to put something back so you can gain your screening back, that's something you have to consider as well. So by just having, we need this tree or that tree, that's not the right thought process either.
Okay, thank you.
Wait a minute, can we,
We need to keep the order of business for the meeting, I think.
Okay, so,
All of these things will be taken into consideration when we're crafting the actual law.
Yes.
This is just the moratorium.
so then may I have a vote?
Can I just say one thing first?
Yes. No, I meant that, yes.
I'm just really disappointed in my colleagues who chose not to show up tonight because of political BS. This is a law that this city needs. We have to act quickly because we've already seen a complete massacre of trees in this city. The longer we wait, the longer we can get this into effect.
You mean the quicker?
Yes, I'm sorry, the quicker we can get into effect. So this faux outrage at a special meeting over something that has been a problem in this city for as long as I have lived here is nonsense. It's political gamesmanship. And I think this is at the risk and at the peril of who they're supposed to be serving, which is all of you and all of us. So they chose not to be here, and we didn't do this to play political games. We did this to serve and volunteer our community. If you're not gonna show up to do that, I wanna know why you're even here. So I'm just very angry with them. I'm gonna make the motion that we open a public hearing to adopt a 3-month moratorium. I'm setting a public hearing. Making a motion to set a public hearing February 15th.
May I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Could you please consider coming again to the February 15th meeting?
Thank you all.
Well, bring our friends.
Very helpful. You guys informed this very much. It was really helpful. Thank you.